before the building was built, the historic wall along the bank of the river on the southern side had already been put in place. Obviously imported rock, it's not local rock. And to this day, it still stands well, and it's a compliment to the tradesmen that built it.
What we do know is that the building started construction in 1889. When that actually finished, I'm not really sure, but it was around 1889, and it was a series of a number of wharf structures along the Pioneer River.
Those warehouses down on the riverbank, and it used to go from the Forgan Bridge right down way past 6 River Street, they were very important, critical to Mackay's early development, because that's where all the trade happened out of that part of the river. And that warehouse, that particular warehouse at 6 River Street, that was one of the earliest.
The actual building itself, the superstructure was hoop pine. The king posts were, I believe, iron bark, probably as hard as you would ever get. And the tradesman's work that was done in the building of the trusses, I've never seen before. I've never seen anywhere.
Just the way it was built, the workmanship, was just unbelievable. The braces and stuff, the steel strapping at the top, like you just never see it anymore. Anyone that had anything to do with building, my father was a builder, and he just used to, couldn't believe it, the timber and stuff that was in there.
Early on in the days, there was the Adelaide Steamship Company who used to look after that and basically did a lot of the sugar ferrying from there.
The smaller boats used to fill up the sugar here and take them out to Flat Top and load them onto bigger boats at Flat Top and Round Top.
It probably took a week to fill a ship full of sugar from there with the lighters.
The engineers would have worked out a weight load, having in mind that bags of sugar were 160 pounds. Now, this building was filled right up to the trusses. The trusses had people's names written on them, so when you work it out, there's a lot of weight on that building.
From about the 1940s, it was basically taken over by a fertiliser company, and at that time the timber floor was actually coated with a concrete floor because they had a lot heavier things and to basically store on it. But changed its functions sort of in the 1940s to fertiliser.
That area was, just always activity around trading, and the trains used to come through there as well. So it was a very industrialised area.
In 1956, I came there with my father to obtain some fertiliser, and the railway tracks and the trains all ran in River Street, and the farmers came in and picked up their fertiliser there. You had to load it by yourself. It came out on a wooden slat conveyor, and you had to be ready to take it.
The 1960s was used as a fertiliser shed. ACF and Shirley's decided they didn't need that building anymore. So we looked at the opportunity because we, at that time, owned Brampton Island as well as Royland Cruises.
So it became Royland Cruises eventually, and Royland Cruises operated out of there for quite a long time. A lot of people probably don't know about Royland Cruises now, but after the war, Tom McLean and his family bought a whole series of PT boats and turned them into cruise boats in the Whitsundays area and operated out of Mackay.
We built our office in the eastern end of the building, and we had storage for our various vehicles. We had trucks and things that carted stores out to the harbour for the ships. And we also used to look after clients or passengers' cars while we were away 5-day cruising.
Just a little bit further down the road, was a small shed there, which was the booking office. In between the two, there was cement platforms where the Roylands used to come up to do their maintenance. They could sit up there on high tide, and then they'd go dry, so they could do work on the bottom. And it was a maintenance area for the Royland fleet.
So it's had a long connection to the development of Mackay, that particular building or that site.
The locals in Mackay really loved Brampton Island. It was a very popular destination for day tripping and for holidaying, particularly Easter and Christmas time. And when these other people took over, they just didn't think about the locals anymore. It started to collapse, and then we started to find it very difficult getting enough passengers to travel on our boats. And we decided to sell up, so we did.
I'm not sure who the owner was after that, but Paul Papyrus from APG owned it at one stage and he sold it to Murray Little. Then it became the Seafresh building. It was Seafresh Products, which was a seafood wholesaling building. It was owned by a Chinese company called Sea Power Resources, who Murray had sold to. They were looking at exiting Australia or exiting their Queensland seafood operation. We looked at it as two sides, B as the opposition side for our business, to remove the opposition, and also for a development side.
The only thing I can really remember is my dad going there to buy prawns, probably more when it was Seafresh days, and getting bait. So that was, definitely from a fishing family, and that's all I really remember was going and buying fresh prawns for Christmas time and getting boxes of bait. That was pretty much all my memory of it was.
Well, when we put the PDA into action, and that took a long while, the vision for the river was to turn what was the heart of Mackay originally, what was the industrial, the import-export heart of Mackay, to turn that into something that could be celebratory for Mackay residents and for tourists about our Blue Water River.
There was a few obstacles and I guess tricky things that we had to deal with in relation to doing that. First of all, I guess we've got a levee wall that is a real barrier on connecting people to the water, but also particularly in that area there were those buildings that were in a bit of a sad state, basically from Paxton's all the way through to the fish market, and they also had some development applications that were sitting on them as well that were dormant, and I guess there's a lot of challenges with being on the river and the construction and costs associated with that.
We started with quite a few different people got involved in the design, and at one stage we actually looked at making warehouse apartments. So from the top where the A-frame came down, as making them all apartments, and the bottom another retail area type scenario. But the last one we settled on was 2 towers, 6 stories on one side and 8 stories on the other. With a pool area in the middle, and I said retail all underneath. We looked at all different options. We explored different ways and different avenues to designs to come up with it. But underneath was probably in a little bit worse way, and it needed a fair bit of work done underneath to secure it into the future for apartments. And we had then to either look at demolishing or to spend a lot of money underneath it. And as I said, I would love to see it come to fruition. I would like to be in my unit on the top floor looking out over the ocean and on a Sunday afternoon having a barbecue, but we decided to take the council's offer and let them take care of it.
When the 2 dormant DAs sort of came before council, what would we do about it? The option was for us to get involved, to put a stake in the ground and to buy those dormant DAs. That took a while, that took a fair amount of negotiation, but thankfully the council agreed to buy them, and I think that was a great step forward. So now we came into ownership of a couple of those areas, 6 and 8 River Street, where we could actually use it as a catalyst to start the next part of our journey on the Pioneer River.
So when we basically did the development scheme for the Mackay waterfront and also looked at that master plan, we wanted something that was a much lower scale to what was proposed. We also didn't want it to be, that block to us doing something to connect people to the river. And so in negotiations with council, we ended up deciding it was the best thing to purchase the sites and look at opening up that potential for what the river could be.
In terms of demolition, it's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, wooden structured building that I've ever demolished. We dropped the building in 2 sections, the southern section of about 800 square metres and the western section of about 1,300 square metres. I designed all the stressing and I designed all the cuts, and together with my staff we were able to land it within 25 mil of the lines on the ground we put for the building. I always have a great respect for people in the past and recognise when people do things well, and to see that actual workmanship yourself, it's testimony that those people did things right, and they did. When they built that building, they really did do it right.
there's an artistic design around what should happen for the vista across the river. A lot of the artists within the design said all of those piles that held up that building should be in the river as a permanent reminder and an artistic statement. Unfortunately, when they started to demolish it, most of the piles that were holding it up were rotten.
We'd hoped for a lot more piles. We were actually expecting a couple of hundred piles to show the full footprint of what that building was going to look like. But yeah, unfortunately, they were in a lot worse condition than what we thought. And so through that process of the demolition, the ones that are standing are the only ones that were basically left structurally sound. So the fact that the building probably was standing there as long as it was is a little bit of a feat in itself.
The piles that are there now, and I'm pretty sure it's turpentine timber that they would have used in them days, like from the mud level down, they're just pristine. There's no problem at all. The only issue you have is from the mud level to the water level is where the borers or the worms eat the timber. But they obviously didn't like those piles, so whatever they treated them with, whether it's creosote or the quality of the timber or the species of the timber, the bugs or the borers couldn't get into them.
We acknowledge that there aren't too many buildings there that really show what that wharf history kind of was, and we saw it as a really important, feature to salvage what we could and showcase what used to be there.
When there's something in the landscape that causes a question, people say, well, why are they there? Then you're able to tell a story. You're able to link that story with the growth of Mackay, with the fact that that's where Mackay actually started. The trading out of that river came from here. And so I think it's a pretty good reason to have a few piles in the river.
We're doing up, the area that's between Paxton's and the fish market. That's our first stage of the Riverside development. We'll be doing up basically the footpath the whole way along there with some designs on the asphalt, which will look pretty impressive. We're also building a pavilion that's going to look out, and it's using the material from the building that's been demolished as key features as part of that as well.
Just envisage either living very close to it or being able to utilise some of the green space that we'll have down there. And just a picnic by the river with the family on a Sunday afternoon, and there's pop-up food stalls and there's pop-up drink stalls down there. It's about our community interacting with the river that they've not been able to do ever since Mackay was formed in 1862.
This is the whole idea of what we're doing, is to stimulate those new economic opportunities for everybody else, and also to have that linkage back to the city centre and bringing more people in.
Everybody who wants to comment on what the river should be used for has a positive outcome. You know, whether it's float planes landing in and out of the river or paddle boards in the river, the uptake has been really enthusiastic and very, very positive.
Yeah, I think it'd be very beneficial for the town. The water does attract people. It's peaceful to sit on an afternoon, or sit all day for that matter, and just watch the water and enjoy good food.
Some buildings would be very good to enhance the river, such as restaurants where you could sit and dine and view out across the river.
I think everyone in Mackay knows the Pioneer River and they want to be able to see it and enjoy it. I think it's a wonderful thing, really.
It's really important to get everybody excited about it. We're really excited about it. I think there's a lot of the councils that are really excited about it, and community that's really excited about it. So yeah, I think it's sort of time that we did bring people back to the river and have a look at what we've got to showcase.